This is Craig. He runs a plumbing business out of Bristol here in the UK. He's got a team of 4 employed plumbers, a busy schedule, and this is his branding. A £20 magnetic sign he slapped on the side of his van when he first started. It did the job when he was a one-man band, but now it's holding him back. See, Craig has a scaling problem. His team is growing, but his visual authority is stuck in the past. Bristol is a saturated market, and when everyone looks the same, the only thing left to compete on is price. So Craig's reality right now is this. He has a serious business with a proper team, but his van still looks like a side hustle. If your first impression on a customer's driveway says cheap and temporary, you can't confidently charge the premium prices that your team deserves. So before we touch Illustrator, we jump on what I call a discovery call. 15 to 30 minutes max, no design talk, no software. On that first call, we're not asking what colour do you like, we're asking how did you start the business? Why plumbing? What kind of jobs do you want more of? And what are your competitors doing badly that you know you can do better? We're trying to pull out the origin story and the unfair advantages that set this business apart in a crowded Bristol market. So let's say we've done the discovery call and the pain points are clear. People still think I'm a bloke with a white van. I've got 4 plumbers, but the brand hasn't caught up. Nothing about our look says premium or team. Competitors are undercutting on price, and we don't want to play that game. So the problem isn't leads and it isn't the quality of his workmanship. The problem is perception. His business has outgrown his branding, simple as that. So the goal for this project is straightforward. We're going to create a new identity that matches the professionalism of his team. So that means taking his name, making a logo mark, a colour system, and a bold vehicle identity that turns his vans into moving billboards around Bristol. We're not just designing something that looks cool on Instagram. We're building a marketing moat, a visual system that makes his business instantly recognisable and hard to copy. So across this project, I'm going to walk you through the full studio process I use for every high-ticket client. We'll cover discovery, mood boarding, naming, and logo design. Then we get technical. We look at colour engineering, the 1 to 20 scale templates, and testing the wrap in 3D before we cut a single length of vinyl. In this video, we've set the scene, we know the stakes, but before we open a blank document, we have to get the right information out of the client's head. Most designers fail because they start drawing before they've actually listened to the business problem. So in the next part, I'm going to walk you through the exact surgical discovery questions I asked Craig. If you want to charge premium rates, you have to ask premium questions. Let's look at the list now. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just run you through the discovery notes I took from this call with Craig, this hypothetical call we had. So Clifton Plumbing and Heating. And these are the questions I asked and the questions you should really ask. So how did the business get started? And he said started as a solo operative with a magnetic sign, passion for the trade, built a reputation, and the kinds of jobs that he wants more of: high-end residential contracts in Clifton and Bristol, large-scale heating installations, period property maintenance, where the quality is valued over the speed. And what are your competitors doing that you're doing better? And to which he replied, most are splash and dash, they lack attention to detail. We focus on precision engineering and leaving the site cleaner than we found. Our technical knowledge is superior. His unfair advantages, he stated, is local roots, highly trained permanent team, no subcontractors, a deep understanding of Bristol's unique architectural plumbing requirements. And so, as we said before, the perception gap. He's seen as a man in a van with a side hustle, cheap, temporary, and indistinguishable from budget competitors, and in reality they're a serious company with a team of 5 altogether, 5-star rated, reputation in Bristol. The keywords I've picked out for this actual exercise are Bristol heritage, Bristol engineering, established authority, and quality workmanship. So these are the 4 keywords that we're going to base our design off of. So we're going to make a logo and a brand identity based on these 4 keywords in particular. Also written down from these discovery notes, the core pain point is the price caution. So what Craig said is he senses client hesitation during price discussions, and he attributes this to lack of visual trust. Non-branded workwear creates a temporary feel. Generic website doesn't reflect the premium service. Magnetic sign suggests a side hustle, not a professional fleet. And just a note on that, because we've identified price caution is linked to a total lack of brand consistency, and he's mentioned websites, This is a future upsell. We could mention this at a later date during the period we're working with him, saying we could create a high conversion website, we could create business cards, etc. Those are the notes that I've taken for the discovery call. Okay, so I'm now going to show you the proposal. So this is the document that I've put together. It's like the sales pitch to get the project. So I should mention before we get too into the proposal now, in the initial client call we had, to save ourselves a lot of time doing the proposal, we really need to be looking at the price and mentioning the price straight away. So we can say most of the high-end fleet projects that I handle fall between £2,000 and £5,000. And does that align with the budget that you set aside for this rebrand? There's going to be pushback possibly. They might say that's just too expensive. You can just calmly say, I understand that based on the 5 van scale and the premium positioning we've discussed, this is what it takes to do it right. And what kind of budget were you originally expecting for a project of this scale? To really dig deeper into what budget they've got. And this will save you a lot of time. You can just stick to your guns with this and say a polite no to his budget and say, for the level of technical precision and strategy we're providing, we usually work with clients in the 2K region. And if we cut the price to 800, we'd have to cut the strategy out and you wouldn't get the result you need. So you're welcome to shop around, but make sure you ask other studios exactly what strategy you're getting for the money. And this just positions you as an expert, giving them the information to make a decision basically. So let's say, for example, now they're happy with that. We've gone through the price. So I'll now take you through the proposal. So this proposal I've set up as an Acrobat PDF document, and you just save it as a PDF, and then you can just press the arrow buttons to scroll through it. So this is my first screen. I've attached this as a document you can edit yourself and use for your own clients. Obviously just change the logo. So I'll press this arrow button to go through. So the first page I've got on here is the proposed name, because we're renaming his brand. So this is the proposed name from Clifton Plumbing and Heating to Lansdowne Plumbing and Heating. So what I've said here is, following our discovery call, you identified a critical perception gap. Your business is a team of 4, high-end expertise, 5-star reputation, does not match your visual identity, magnetic signs, generic branding, no fleet consistency. To bridge this gap and position you for high-ticket heating contracts across Bristol and Bath that are close together, literally side by side, we are recommending a strategic rebrand to Lansdowne Plumbing and Heating, a name that carries regional authority, heritage, and the prestige required to command premium rates. So Lansdowne is basically a street name in Bristol and also Bath, an area in Bristol and Bath. And so I've gone on to say, why Lansdowne? Lansdowne is a mark of established authority. It bridges the prestigious gap between Bristol and Bath, positions your business as a regional institution rather than a local tradesman. So visually, the brand will be anchored with a geometric mark inspired by the iconic architectural silhouettes of the Lansdowne Crescents. And this tells your clients you are a high-end engineering firm with heritage and scale to handle the most complex heating installations in the Southwest's finest homes. So going on from there, I outline the project goals. So the first one is a strategic pivot to transition from the Clifton Plumbing and Heating to Lansdowne Plumbing and Heating, moving away from the localised man in the van perception to a prestigious regional engineering authority, as we've said. And then going on to number 2, bridge the perception gap, as we've discussed, align the visual identity with the high quality, the reality of the work that they actually do. This will replace the magnetic sign aesthetic with a permanent high-end brand system. Number 3 is establish the marketing moat. And this is to create an architectural visual language, a Lansdowne mark that competitors cannot easily replicate, ensuring the fleet stands out as the gold standard in an affluent residential area. So that is the marketing moat to get you in the door of these properties. So technical precision, number 4. So this means we're going to develop the master fleet livery system built on a 1:20 scale grid. This ensures 100% accuracy on the Mercedes Vito fleet, providing the vehicle wrap installers with surgical blueprints that guarantee a flawless final application, which we'll look at later in the course. And then for number 5, high ticket lead generation. to design the vehicle signage as a 24/7 lead generation tool. The goal is to attract ideal clients, high-end residential commercial, who value expertise and reliability over the lowest quote. So fleet scalability, number 6, to deliver a plug-and-play brand toolkit and print-ready templates that allow the business to scale from, say, 5 vans to 20 in the future, with total visual consistency and 0 brand dilution. So that's the project goals that we're going to take the client through. So moving on from that, we've got a brief outline of the scope of work. So we've got the discovery call where we're at now, and then we've got the brand direction. Moving on from there, we've got the brand direction sign off, which we're going to go through as the next step, and then into development. So we create the logo suite. All the design work will be carried out in the development stage, formulate the typography and finalize the van templates. Then on to visual identity presentation. So that's where we have to literally sell our logo and our logo mark and the van visuals to the client. And then if he's happy with that, all signed off, we go on to deliverables. So that just gives the client an overview of the process we're going to work to. And moving on from there, we've got a timeline. Now this can be anything you want, but obviously we give him a rough outline of how long this is all going to take. So brand strategy, presentation, we've got development, visual identity presentation, and then sign off, and then deliverables. And then moving on from there, we're actually going to list the deliverables. So we've got the logo suite, 2 to 3 variations of the Lansdowne mark, primary logo, secondary mark. Then we've got the typography system, 2 professional selected typefaces, 1 for headings, etc. Jumping onto this one, we've got the main logo mark and secondary graphics. So the bespoke icon inspired by the Lansdowne architecture, and a suite of supporting graphic elements that can be used across the van signage, stationery and visual assets. So then we got the vehicle signage template, which is the print ready, scaled technical template ready to give to the printers. That'll be designed in Adobe Illustrator, obviously with millimeter precision. But moving on to the last one, we've got the brand guidelines. So concise PDF outlining the logo usage, color palette, CMYK colors and typography rules, and application examples for future use like website, business cards, workwear, where to use each element we've created basically. And that's it. And then we go on to the investment, as we've said. So we say, okay, Craig, so this is the investment we're looking at for a project like this. Total project investment, $2,495. So this includes the full brand identity system, the print ready van templates, brand guidelines, no hidden fees. This is all in price. So then, like I say, we have to go back to possible pushbacks on the price. We need to stick by our guns there and say, you understand your concerns, but for this level of work, we need to be charging between 2 and 5k, and really 2,000 is probably the low end. So once he's happy with all that and signed it off, we go on to the next step. Okay, so we're now going to look at my completed brand strategy document, or the mood boarding slide deck as it's commonly known. I've included the full Illustrator file in this section of the course. You can download it, change out my logos and use it in your own client project straight away. So the first slide, we just got the intro page here, just very clean, simple and setting the tone. Then on the next side, we've got the contents page, nothing complicated here, it just shows the client what we're going to run through, and it sets the expectations and keeps the presentation structured. So now we get to the important part, the brand foundations page. This is where we outline the key elements that make up our client's brand identity. So we start first with the audience persona, basically their ideal customer in plain English. And this is where we get specific about the customer's age ranges, locations, behaviours and shopping habits when they choose contractors. So here I'm given as much information as possible based on the discovery call and my understanding of their customers so far. So for example, here I've written high net worth homeowners and property developers in Clifton, Bristol and the surrounding premium postcodes. These are design conscious professionals aged 35 to 65 who value their time, their property's integrity, and they aren't looking for the cheapest quote, they're looking for the most competent, reliable and aesthetically aligned partner to enter their home. So then we have the audience pain point, And this is crucial. This identifies the primary need or frustration their customers have, the thing that their brand needs to solve. So audience pain point is the professional mismatch. The current trade landscape in the Southwest is dominated by utility-first branding, visuals and communication styles that focus purely on the fix rather than the experience. So next is the emotional impact. This is the vibe or feeling we want their potential customers to have when they first enter the business, whether that's trust, reassurance, ease of access, confidence, whatever matches their goals. So if we look at the emotional impact statement on this one, it's the brand should leave the audience feeling reassured, respected and exclusive. When they see the van or the website, they should feel like they found the architect of plumbing, a service that is as precise and polished as the homes they live in. So after that, we have the brand differentiator. This is what separates them from everyone else, their unique angle, their strengths and real reasons someone should choose them. So here I've put a surgical approach to plumbing and heating. While others focus on getting the job done, this brand focuses on technical mastery and aesthetic precision. We offer a level of visual and operational professionalism usually reserved for high-end architectural firms, bridging the gap between trades and a studio. Then we have the brand personality, which is basically, if this brand were a person, what would they be like? So for this client, I've written, this brand is quietly confident, meticulous and authoritative. If it were a person, it would be a master craftsman in a bespoke suit, someone who speaks with technical clarity, doesn't need to shout to be heard, and values substance over flash. He or she would be clean, modern and intentionally premium. And finally, we have the brand position. This describes where they sit in the landscape. Are they a quick fix budget company or a detail-driven premium contractor? So here I've wrote brand position, the Kensington standard of Bristol, based on Chelsea and Kensington as their equivalent high-end areas. We are claiming the space as the premier design-led heating and plumbing consultancy in the Southwest. We don't compete with local independent plumbers on price, we compete with high-end service providers on quality, reliability and brand prestige. So moving on to slide 4, our first mood board. Here I've picked out some local competitors' logos. You don't need to fill the page here, just enough logos to show the client what the general brand landscape looks like in their area. This helps them visually understand what their customers are seeing every day. So on slide 5, we dig a bit deeper. I'm looking specifically at colour themes, illustration styles, font choices and the overall vibe. And also, as you can see here, there's a slide-in scale. So if you hold shift and drag this node along the line, you can actually indicate the strength of the parameter there. And also, as you can see on here, I've got these brand colours that indicate the types of colours used. Then I've got a generic statement about the local competitors. These local competitors inspire more generic plumbing to me. Not many of the brands really stand out in the crowd. Consequently, I think there's a really good opportunity to stand out on our chosen market. So then moving on, we have the mood board B, and I've titled this high-end brands. These are the branding aesthetics the client wants to sit alongside. We've moved away from Bristol local companies and looked at London, Kensington, Chelsea, basically the premium benchmarks they're aspiring to. So these are a few of the logos I just dragged out of a few of the Kensington and London area websites. Then we have the high-end brand analysis. Again, we go a bit deeper. This is a forensic breakdown of what makes these high-end brands look premium. We're analysing spacing, colour palettes, typography, layout principles, all the stuff that communicates quality. So now I'll wrap this section up with a concluding statement. Kensington and Chelsea London, in comparison to the more local high street brands, I've picked out plumbing and heating companies in Kensington and Chelsea that would sit equally well alongside Clifton and Bath to raise the bar over the more generic local competition. As we can see, instantly the higher end logos look more traditional with a mixture of sans serif and serif fonts. The colours used are occasionally more refined and luxurious, and the designs are more intricate and move away from the generic gas flame look with that engineered style of design. And I've just picked out a picture from a website here as well. And again, we've got the slide-in scale and the summary. So finally, we get to the brand direction slide. And this is arguably the most important slide because it's where we commit to a visual direction. As you can see, I've copied the strongest brand assets from the highest level competitors. This sets the benchmark for the level of branding we need to achieve. Then I've included this final written statement, which effectively locks in the brand direction we're going to take. So this is important. It sets the expectations early, so we're not throwing random ideas around or drifting away from the strategy later on. So here I've put, in conclusion, from extensive market research across both the local high street areas and the higher end equivalent areas in the UK, it's absolutely clear that the correct direction for this company to attract customers in the Clifton and Bath area is using sans serif fonts or mixing up with serif fonts, plaque-like logo designs such as the one identified that look prestigious and established, using refined colours with more thought gone into the design than the local brands. Such a logo would need to look elegant but modern, and this would be applicable across all the branding so that it all ties together cohesively. And then I've ended with, I would strongly advise that the direction is pursued to be able to have the logo sit well alongside these ones identified. Also, I would suggest a website reflects this as well. In my opinion, I think there's a lot more room on the van signage to be slightly bolder with larger graphics that instantly grab attention while staying on brand. So that concludes the mood boarding and brand strategy document. So we're now going to move on to actually creating this brand. Okay, so let's jump into the design phase now. So I want to take you through the steps to create my logo. I started the project by sketching down some logo marks using pencil and paper. I just drew out some iconic Bristol landmarks like the bridge, the air balloon, and some Roman period arches and columns, as you can see here. I've put them into vector form just to get a few ideas flowing. I then started looking at possible fonts for the wordmark, which I felt needed to look regal and tied to the area's heritage, which I thought was important. Initially, I thought of the sans serif fonts, which I normally would use for big van graphics, but in this case, I just wanted the logo to sit within the plaque so that it looks more like a stamp of authority and trust. So I came up with this letter here, which is Spirax font. So I selected this font here, which is the Tiro Canada font, and I changed the kerning mode to optical for the top version here, as you can see. Then I pushed up the VA kerning, and as you can see in the original font at the bottom, it looks a bit too condensed, and we want the spacing so that it's nice and clear and reads well at a distance. So if I take this font here, I've just gone to the VA kerning here and scroll down to select optical, and as you can see, it just makes it more even before and after. And then I push up the VA kerning and just a little bit. So that's how I got to this stage here. So looking at the logo mark here, I came up with these ideas of having like a pipe radiator, like a more modern bespoke pipe radiator. And these original shapes were created by using a letter U, because the font geometry is mathematically precise, and this is much more accurate than drawing a rectangle and guessing the curves using the live corner widgets, i.e. the circular handles inside the corners. So I drew that out. This is a combination of a U shape, which I've flipped using the reflect tool and got it to sit together, joined it together. So then I drew this mathematical grid around the shape so I could get the spacing correct, which consists of 6 individual layers here. And then I got the spacers between the actual pipe work to space them out correctly. And this is my measuring technique here. I just drew these out. So these don't have a stroke, they just filled objects. Actually, I think I even increased the stroke first to pump up the weight of these so that they sit better with the text. And then if we go on to the L, so I got the main L of the word mark the same weight as the rest of the text. So again, I did this by using a filled square, literally like just dragged out these lines, guidelines from the side here. And then I created my rectangle with no stroke. And what I'll do is move that over the lines and then just trim that to there. So I know that is the weight of my text. What I'll do is take this letter, if we zoom in, I would go into view outline mode, I'd put my shape on top there, and then I would manually drag these lines back. So snap to this line here, snap to this line here. So I eventually selected the logo mark below from my AI generated icons opposite, those ones there, this one here. I set the image transparency to 25%, then use the pen tool to trace over it, locking the layer, then working on the design layer above it. And I also made the tail of this L slightly thicker so it doesn't disappear when it's scaled down, so it all looks cohesive. And again, I used the direct selection tool to literally pull out the anchor points, and then use the smooth tool to refine the curves. And as you can see here, I initially scaled the logo mark up to the same height as the lowercase n, but decided against this as I thought it looked better the same height as the D, which then makes it more iconic. So at the bottom, I came up with a better composition. I used a rectangular grid, the same height as the D, split it into thirds, and then to have a proportional space between the D and the logo mark to 1/3, as you can see here. This was the original idea, having this smaller as the same height as the N, but then decided it should be the same height as this D. So I then came up with these 3 plaque concepts. I previously planned to use the plaque as it gives the logo that engraved look, fitting into the landscape of both the Clifton area of Bristol and Bath. I simply referenced some plaque images on Google and drew them out using the shape builder tool. I got to the final logo design. I added a border to the sign and positioned the logo centrally. I then researched some color palettes on Adobe Color website, and after some back and forth, I had the idea of basing the design colors off of one of the most iconic streets in Bristol. So as you can see by this photo below, the colors are very saturated. I think that's the camera used, and I went with this one, I believe. So these 2 colours in particular look rich and heritage, which tie into the area quite well, and more importantly, appealing to the clients we want to attract to the business. I did come up with some colour variations, trying the gradient version. So here then we have the final logo, which can be used within the plaque or without it, and with quite a diverse colour palette, which all come from the same photo so that all the colours hold the same tones. If one were too yellow or green, the graphics would look awkward. So finally, I had Abacus AI generate some more icons relating to the Bristol and Bath architecture. I required these for the other brand assets, including the van signage, which we will look at soon. So that concludes the process of creating this logo. Next thing we do is have a look at the van and put some signage on it, and utilising all these elements in a cohesive looking van wrap design. We move on to the van design phase now. I'm going to take you through it step by step. I've got 3 projects open here. I've got the van templates, I've got the actual design that I've done, and this is what it looks like. This is the one I decided on in the end. We've got this side elevation, and we've got the front and rear elevation drawings there. Then I've got all the assets, which is the logo and the architectural images I've designed with AI, and the individual logo mark and the color palette here. So then I've got the student template, and you can download this as part of the course, and if you want to practice putting your own designs on. But firstly, I need to show you the most crucial stage, this being making sure we've got CMYK colors. Now the reason is we change the RGB colors to CMYK because the CMYK colors are the actual colors the printer needs. So if you send a design with RGB colors on, it's probably not going to come out exactly how you've designed it, because the CMYK is the color palette you need. So if I go on this one here, look, I've got this element, the background of this logo. I'll double click on fill, and you can see it's CMYK. So originally I designed it in RGB because I wanted to select the colors from the Bristol street. So as you can see here, I've had to adjust it to match, and I've changed the whole color palette to CMYK. If they're too far off the original RGB colors when you were in that part of the design phase, you can simply drag these sliders, the cyan, magenta, yellow, and you can actually just tweak them to change back to the colors you desire. So that's a very important integral part of the design process. We definitely need to be in CMYK. Otherwise we could have a nasty shock when the actual van design is printed out. Okay, so moving on, what I'd like to show you is the van wrap or partial wrap ideation method, which I've done using AI, and I generally use Abacus AI. And in this case, I've used it to generate these van wrap concepts. So as you can see here, I've set up a simple, powerful workflow. I uploaded the following assets as separate files. So we had the blank side view of the template, the actual Mercedes Vito, as we've seen, the Lansdowne plaque logo, the architectural icons, and then by giving Abacus AI these raw ingredients individually, it can intelligently composite them onto the van template, scaling the column to feel structural position in the plaque on the door, and applying the palette in different two-tone splits and pinstripes. Using the AI workflow enables me to envisage different design layouts that I otherwise wouldn't be able to ideate that quickly. So I still build the final artwork in Illustrator, but AI massively accelerates the concepting stage. So I start with strong pre-visualized directions. So the actual prompt I used in the end was create a 4x4 idea board, 16 new side view mock-ups for Lansdowne plumbing and heating, Mercedes Vito wraps. Evolve the two-tone split and architectural horizon style from the uploaded images. Use the provided van outline, logo, plaque, architectural icons on full color palette, ensuring no stretching. Make architectural icons large and structural. Cut the word plumbing out of the dark vinyl sections to show the cream paint beneath. Focus on high impact prestige architectural look. And as you can see, it's come up with some ideas. Now these are just ideas. As you can see, they're a bit scattered all over the place, but this can be a really good starting point to come up with design ideas. Like for example, this one, there's a full wrap and it looks pretty cool. And we've got all these different colors from the color palette starting to be introduced there. Let's have a look. This one with the column looks quite good. But for the final direction, I liked these three designs. So having a column, having the split after the van door, and I particularly like this sweep in one, which looks quite clean and tidy. So the line sweeps all the way along the van and with the logo at the top here. So as you can see, I took inspiration from that design direction and I did my own sweep across the van and put plumbing and heating at the top here. So because we're doing a tradesman's signage, we always need the main trade in big letters across the side of the van. That's because in reality, when we're on the road, we only see 2 to 3 seconds of our van design as it speeds past us. And then as you can see, we can put the details on the rear of the van. So this is how you want to think when you do van design. You want nice big text, either cut out of a background or stand alone like this. So it just says immediately what you do. And then the logo mark can be secondary, incorporated in the design like this. So I'm going to jump into the actual design phase now, and just to show some of you who aren't so familiar with Illustrator how I went about doing that. Okay, so moving on to the actual van design, I just want to show you the layers here first. So if we look at the van design layer here, just unlock that for a moment. What I've done on this particular side view, which is the left-hand view, I've actually turned the opacity down. So if I select that, you can see I've got opacity there at 19% because I want to be able to see my line work as I draw on top of the actual design there. So I'll close that back up and lock it. So we're always locking the van design layer as we don't want to alter any of the van components. Okay, so if we refer to our drawing there, this is what I did before. So if we look at the layers, you can see I've got the van design layer, the swatches layer, which is individual here on each page. I'm going to lock that, don't need to touch that. And you got the titles, which are these titles at the top. As you can see, we're on a scale 1 to 20. And the size of the artboards, and I'm going to lock that. We want those all locked, especially the van design layer. And I've got 2 design layers here to work on. And I've got the bleed layer there, which will put all our bleed layers in. So we need bleed because we need something for the printer to be able to cut off in the design process. We don't want to just cut, like for example, this panel in. We would add 100 mil all the way around the perimeter of that. So we've got a visible bleed layer for the printer to see. This is the pro way of working. So I'm just going to lock that for a minute. So I tend to lock all the layers I'm not working on. So I want to work on the first graphic design layer now. So I'm going to take the curvature pen tool, because I just prefer working with that. as opposed to the pen tool, but if you prefer working with a pen tool, that's fine. The stroke set to 0.5 there. I'm going to take it right down to 0.25 because I want it as accurate as possible. And I'm not going to zoom right in and try and get this exactly on the middle of the line. I'm just going to eyeball it and literally double click there to keep the line straight when using the curvature tool. Then just follow the actual lines of the van. So creating our curve. Oops, I've got the fill on, so I'll just turn that off. No, turn it off. That's it. So I've got that in black, but I'm going to change it to red because I want us to be able to see the outline that we're creating. So I'll double click to keep that straight, and I'm going to zoom in for this bit. So as you can see, we've got a little tricky bit down here. We're going to go around, we're going to go double click there to keep it straight, and then curve around this side, and zoom back out, and then carry on, double click and double click. As you can see, there's a very slight curvature to this bottom of the van here. I'm going to keep going around here, and this is just basically practice. Keep practicing your outline drawings. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm doing it quickly. I mean, I'd go back and adjust this so that it's absolutely bang on. Then what I'm going to do is take this line all the way across there and just meet up with this line. Command Z straightens that up. But now what I'm going to do is create this sweep that goes across the van like that. I'm going to do that with the curvature pen again. Got these one line, separate line here and this area here. So I'm going to select all, and I'm going to use the shape builder tool and delete this section at the top, minus that. And then I'm going to use the direct selection tool, select this line, delete it, and select this line and delete it. So then what I'm going to do is just go select all there and join, just in case there's any stray lines. And as you can see, it's put another section in there. I'm just going to get rid of it again. So we know that's one solid outline. So I'm going to select that. As you can see there, we can just fill that, and we've got our base layer. So now what I'm going to do is pull in the artwork. So I've got the main logo signage here. Just press copy and paste, and as you'll see, that'll come in huge. So I need to scale this down using Alt and Shift so it scales properly. Go back in, scale it down further. So I'm going to put it about here. So what I'm going to do is select the direct selection tool and just select the outline of this now, because I want to cut this in to the vinyl here. So what I'm going to do is go Object, Path, Offset Path, and we'll say 2 mil, because 2 times 20 is 40 mil. So we've got a 40 mil clearance around the actual sign. So what I'm going to do is select all. I'm going to use the shape builder tool and delete this section. Press Alt and delete. And there we go. We've cut our section out. And if I go into view outline mode, I'm going to do is press direct selection tool and remove this line. So if we go back in, we always want to be going back into our outline mode to check our lines, make sure everything's looking good. I mean, this is just the design of the van here, so that's nothing to worry about. So view, preview, go back into this mode. Then what I'm going to do to create my bleed for these two, so I'll go onto my selection tool, select this one, I'm going to go group. So now to create my bleed, what I want to do is create a bleed for this whole section and a bleed for my sign individually, because these are going to be like 2 sections. So click our outline there, and I'm going to go Object, Path and Offset Path, and this time I want 5 mil, which is going to be the standard for any bleeds we want around our signage. So I'm going to remove the fill because we don't want to see that. So if we zoom out, it gives us the 100 mil bleed around the outline of our shape there. So what we don't want to be doing is just carrying on there, because we've cut this sign out. We want to be going in and out there. So we go exactly around our shape. Now that I've done that one, I will select the actual logo. I'll select, make sure I've got the outline selected, and I'm going to go Object, Path, Offset Path. Again, 5 mil, 5 times 20 is 100. So that gives us 100 mil in reality. So then remove the fill, add the stroke. Again, we want to take that down to say 0.25. And that is how we cut out a section of our main signage. And obviously if you're doing a panel here, you wouldn't need to do that. You would just do one big outline around the panel. So what I'm going to do now is grab the selection tool, just make sure this sign is all grouped. So if you remember our bleed on the layers, I'm going to unlock the bleed. I'm going to go onto our design layer. I'm going to take the bleed here and I'm going to move that onto the bleed layer. And then I'm going to take this bleed, which is down here, highlighted by the square, and I'm going to move that onto the bleed. So if I toggle on and off the bleed visibility of this layer, you can see we've got all our bleed on one layer. So that is a printer friendly way of doing it. And then I'll lock that again, go back onto the design layer, and what I need to do is change the color of that, shortcut I for fill, and take that. And as you can see, we're starting to build up our design to get it similar to the one I've done. So the next thing I do is start putting the information on the van design. So we want the telephone number here, nice and big. So what we have to be very conscious of when we're putting our design on the van is that all the handles and the lights, etc., are avoided when we're planning our design. So if we have a look on my actual design there, we can see we've got a print version, which is this version, because they'll just want to see this whole shape as the base. If I toggle off the print version, you can see like I've included the actual trim of the van there, because the vinyl cutter will actually cut around that. But this is a client version, so I want him to see that we've thought about everything and we've cut out this section. So in the design, I've just literally gone around it and deducted it from the shape. So I now take my other information, command copy and paste, and get the text on the van. These fonts are all outlined now, so they work as shapes. So I'm going to group that one, rescale it down, take this word and group it, rescale it down. So as I said before, we want to be getting our main words, which are plumbing and heating, the most visible on the van, so people know exactly what we're doing. The way you can position this is to simply zoom in a bit and use your guides. So I can take this, line that and up with the line, and then you can space this accordingly. So this is how I've done the side of the van. So one thing to point out here is that I'm not adding a bleed to our text, because this is all individually cut and the printer will see this. And the same for the text here, this will be all integrated into this one sheet of vinyl. So the next thing I would do is go on to say the rear of the van, and I would do the same thing. If we turn the bleed on, we can see I've got a bleed line all the way around this section, because this is one whole section of the van design on the back here, the base layer. Then as you can see, I've got these individual elements, the architectural elements. I've just copied and pasted those on. I've set them to this color from the color palette. I've actually taken the opacity down on these so that they blend into the back. So as you can see there, it's at 12%. So if we go on to our rear design there, again, the same process. What I'll do is unlock the actual van design layer, select it all, and I would take the opacity down to say 16%. There we go, we've got the outline there, and I'll lock that back up. Then I'm going to go on to design layer 2. So you can see how I'm working there. I'm just being very careful which layer I'm working on all the time, making sure other layers are locked at all times. So then I'm just working on this specific design layer. So for this one, I'm going to do the same thing and use the curvature pen tool. Go in a bit further. I need to remove the fill and add the stroke. Take that down to 0.25. And I would start, say here, double click, going down straight to about there. Then start curving around here. Not too many points, just enough to get around it. And then I'm going to end up straight there. So I want to double click, carry on down. So again, what I would do, start here, go all the way around this perimeter. I'd go all the way up here to this line and go all the way here. Then what I would do for these badges here, this is quite an important point, I would just take the whole fill over all of these. Then the vinyl cutter will actually cut these out, but we don't want to show them on the print version as being cut out, because the reason being it won't give the printer enough vinyl to cut them out properly. So we always go over. So this would be all green around here. As on the design here, this is all just one shape. But on my design, obviously you can see it goes up and around the lights here, because we definitely want to cut around the light. But all the little badges we can just cover over, because they'll be cut out by the vinyl applicator. So as far as working on these yourselves, you can literally come up with any design you like. I strongly recommend using the AI to get started with some ideas. So for example, you may want to have the green split across the whole back here and have the front of the van white, or you may want a gradient. So you could have the whole van wrap and then a gradient color with the text actually on the baseline, in which case it would just all print out as one. So the main takeaways really are just making sure everything you're doing is 1:20 scale. So my outline bleed here is 100 mil, which is giving the printer an extra 100 mil all the way around this to be able to grab hold of the vinyl and fit it to the indented cut line here. So it will cut all that away, all this away, all this away. And then this is one individual element. So I hope that gives you a good starting point when it comes to designing on vehicles. So next thing we're going to do is move on to presenting the concept to the client. Okay, so moving on to actually putting the design into a mock-up now. So we've got AI generated images of the van we can show the client. I just want to take you through the process of how I did that. As you can see from my layers, I've got a client version that I've actually added to the van design. So if I unhide that, you can see I've actually added these sections of the design, back and the front bonnet. And then obviously I would uncheck those for sending them to the printer, because we don't want the printer getting confused that this back is added onto the side, because these are separate areas obviously. So I'll put the visibility back on there and we can see we've got these images. So what I'm going to do is save these as they are. Click on this artboard 1, file, export for web, legacy. So JPEG is absolutely fine for this because we're giving it to AI to reproduce the image, and we don't want a PNG because it'll get confused with the squared background. So I'm just going to press save, and then that'll go onto my desktop. Okay, so jumping into Abacus AI now, I've got my 4 original design images from Illustrator, and what I want to do is create these mock-ups. So I've got my prompt written in already, and it's a simple prompt, but you have to prompt it a certain way. So I've got, please generate 4 high quality prompts for the image generation platform Leonardo.ai. Please make them photorealistic mock-ups of the van parked in a typical street in Bath or Bristol. No angled shots, so we get the most clear 2D image for each one. Make sure the results are high quality images that I can show to my client. I'll press generate on those and we'll get our 4 prompts. So I've copied and pasted my prompt into the prompt box here on Leonardo.ai. And so we've got a really good prompt: photorealistic vehicle wrap mock-up of a Mercedes Vito mid-size panel van parked on a typical Bath, UK, Georgian street, etc. So I'm going to run that now, and I've put in the first prompt, which is the right side view of the vehicle, which is the driver's side view. And I'm going to generate that, and that's going to create 4 images. And I've got this in 16:9 ratio, and it's using Nano Banana Pro, which is probably currently the best image generation tool. So I'm going to press generate. So then, as you can see, we've got the van mocked up here, actually on the street, photorealistic view. So then what I'm going to do is remove this prompt and put in the rear view, and I've uploaded the rear image, the original design image, and I'm going to press generate on that one. And then we get this really good second image of this van from the rear, and this is in a street in Bath, which is the area the client lives in. So this immediately ties into the landscape of Bath. So then what I do is just download the images, this one here and this side view. So I've got the image in Photoshop here from the right side driver's view, and it's come out really well in Leonardo.ai. And if we zoom in, you can see it's actually really captured well with no defects, not too fuzzy. So that's a really good AI generation of the van mocked up there. But if for some reason we had an image like this, which came in as a little bit fuzzy, and as you can see, the actual lettering is not quite as clear as on this one here, what we can do is actually bring in the original design of the logo and superimpose it on top of the photo. So what I'd do is go into Illustrator, select the original logo, make sure it is grouped, and I would copy and paste it into Photoshop like that. So we've got the logo there. Then I would select it and convert to smart objects. I would simply drag and drop it into here and obviously downsize it. So let's say I went to there. So then we need to carefully place it to the original design and just tweak it with the left and right arrows to get it dead center, and then press the tick mark at the top. So the only problem with this now is that you can see it's a bit outstanding and doesn't match the actual original photo colors. So what we can do is just go to adjustments and add a adjustment layer. So I'll go to levels, and what I'll do is actually clip it to the layer we're working on so it doesn't affect the rest of the photo. Play around with the light in there. I can make it a bit darker to suit the tone of the van photo. So that's levels added, and then we can go to adjustments and maybe add a hue saturation, clip that to the... So we're basically just adjusting the aesthetics of the sign to match the rest of the design. However, the best way really is just to keep generating images on your AI image software so that you can actually get a good mock-up to start with. That way you don't have to adjust these levels, all the light's correct, all the shadows are correct, and all the colors tie in to the scene. So that's the process of how I create the AI mock-ups, and then we can include those into the presentation, which we'll touch on next. Okay, so we're at the logo presentation stage now. So we'd say to our client, today I'm going to walk you through the thinking first behind the design. It's a strategic identity system designed to support premium positioning. And by the end of this talk, you'll see exactly how the work solves the brief. And then moving on to slide 2. This is the mission, purpose and vision. And this is a recap. So we'd start by recapping the mission and vision. So why do we do this? Because a logo is a visual contract. Before we show the client a single part of our design, we need them to okay and agree that we are solving the right problem. This anchors the entire presentation in strategy, not just pretty slides. So next we revisit the brand values, the surgical precision. We show those again to set the filter for the work. If the client agrees that surgical precision is their core value, they can't argue when we show them a clean, sharp, engineered logo later. Then moving on to slide 4, we got the competitor identities, otherwise known as the mood board. So in this project, we'd say to our client, now let's look at the competitor identities. This mood board is a market mirror. We've compared the high-end competition to the lower-end brands so you can see the difference instantly. The high-end identities are consistent, calm and engineered. They look established before you even read the name. The lower-end identities are mostly noisy, generic and inconsistent. They feel like a job in service, not really a premium operation. So this slide is important because it proves we're designing with these set goals. We're designing to win a specific bracket of customer, the people who pay premium rates and expect a premium presence. Then we move on to slide 5, which is the recommended brand direction. So in this project, we'd say to the client, based on everything we've covered, the mission, the values, the competitor landscape, here's what we landed on as the recommended brand direction. We agreed that the brand needs to feel surgical, premium and built, not decorative or crafty. It needs to signal authority instantly, whether it's on a van, a uniform or website. So the goal being to move you away from the solo trader look into that more dominant fleet-ready brand, the kind that holds premium pricing without having to explain it. And that direction is what guided every decision you're about to see. So you're basically just given an explanation to your thinking behind the design process. So moving on to the brief, we always reread the brief. We remind the client that we aren't just making a logo, we are building a marketing moat. We're transitioning them from a solo trader look to a dominant fleet-ready brand. This justifies the premium positioning they want to hold in their market, and then everything that follows is designed to solve this brief, not our tastes, not trends. Then moving on to keywords. This is the specific language that your brand is going to speak to attract high net worth homeowners. The keywords are the DNA of the design you're about to see. So then we have the logo reveal. So we show the logo. This is the proposal, as they'll have a couple of revisions maybe, depending on how many you set. But you have to notice we're not asking, do you like it? We're showing them how it ticks the boxes we've just set. So we say to them, the structure is clean, engineered, the spacing is surgical, the tone is premium without being decorative. So this is the visual answer to the brief we just reread. This is what Regency, Foundry and Surgical Precision look like when they're designed into a brand. Then moving on to slide 9, we are showing the optical kerning and the grid, or the engineering behind the brand. So if we look into this one, you can see I've included optical kerning that we set, spacing adjusted by eye to ensure perfect visual balance. And I've got icon alignment centered on the vertical stem of the D for structure and stability. Then I've got the mirrored flourishes on the L and the N tails that reflect each other to create a visual frame. Then we show the vertical breathing room, which is set to 25% for consistent spacing. Then we've got the hierarchy spacing using double the subtext height to separate from the main service. So if you notice, this height of the N, for example, is the actual spacing used to separate it from the main heading. Then we've got another slide 10 here, just showing the black and white version and recognizable at a small scale. So in this project, we might say to our client, why show the logo at tiny scale? Because a brand has to work everywhere, from a massive van wrap to a tiny favicon on a browser tab. If it fails the small scale black and white stress test, it's not going to be a professional identity. It's just going to be an illustration. So this slide then proves that the logo is built to last across every application. So moving on to slide 11, the logo breakdown. It shows you that this design is unique to you and cannot be replicated simply by typing out a font. It's not just a logo, but a proprietary visual system. So in this case, we chose a serif font because it conveys heritage, trust, and craftsmanship qualities that align perfectly with the Lansdowne Premium Design-led positioning. Then moving on to the logo mark, we isolate the symbol to explain its role as a standalone asset. By showing the mark in its simplest form, we demonstrate its structure and balance and its ability to represent the company's values, like the Bristol and Bath architectural reference. Then the identity, we present the final lockup to show how these individual elements work in harmony. And this section explains the source of truth, proving that when the right type, custom details and icon are combined, they create a professional cohesive system that commands a premium ticket position. So slide 12 is the visualization. So in this project, we say to our client, finally, we move to our visualization. We take the logo off a white screen and put it into the real world on a van, uniform and website. So this is our most impactful moment. It's no longer a design, it's a business asset that commands authority before a single tool is even lifted. This is what your brand looks like when it's working for you in the market. So by going through this presentation, we actually close the deal. We don't ask the client, do you like it? That's just really amateur. So in this project, we'd say to our client, look at the keywords we set at the start. You don't need to hit every single one of them to win, but you must land a knockout blow on at least 2. In this case, we've hit 4. By rebranding to Lansdowne, we've ticked the location box, the plaque style lockup and the deep charcoal and gold palette, signal Regency and an upmarket feel. Then we used the Roman style column to tie the brand directly into the architecture of the region. So what we've built here is a brand identity that aligns your visual presence with the high-end market you're already serving. By moving to the Lansdowne name and this architectural style, we're giving your customers a reason to trust your premium rates instantly. It's about making sure your brand works as hard as your team does. So to finish this presentation with a client, you'd say, let it sit with you, have a think about it at the weekend, and I'll be back in touch. And just leave it a bit open with them so they've got a chance to really digest it and see if it lands with them. So that brings us to the end of this course now on delivering a trade logo and putting on a van design. So just to show you, this is where I get my van designs from. So it has a digital subscription on vehicleoutlines.co.uk. So if you click on the vehicle outline library, this is a yearly digital subscription and it's £149 plus VAT. So this gives you access to literally every type of van and car blueprint that you could ever need, and it regularly updates with all the newer models. So if I click on light commercial vehicles, we'll go to Ford, for example. We've got the option to go to Connect or Courier, Transit. So if I click on the Ranger and press search, we come up with all the designs for the Ford Ranger. So you can see we've got 2022 onwards, and we just simply click on these when we've got our subscription and download them. And you can also download a sample as well. So that'd be a good way to get started with actually designing on a vehicle. So I hope you enjoyed the course, and any questions, just leave me in the course question section.